Welcome to Challenge Athletes Live. My name is Bob Babbitt. Our first guest of our first episode, our programs director from Challenge Athletes Foundation, Mr. Travis Ricks. How you doing, T?
Morning, Bob. Feels like it's been forever.
It has been forever, bud. Hey, so take me back a little bit. When were you first diagnosed with cancer?
1997 actually is when I first found out that I had something going on. They hadn't really quite diagnosed it yet, but I was in a football game my senior year of high school.
And your identity at that point, you're an athlete. You're doing football. Were you also wrestling?
I hadn't started my wrestling season yet. I was in the sixth, actually. The season started with me limping through the first half of the season, couldn't figure out what was wrong. And then the sixth game of the season of football, I got hurt and rushed off to the hospital. And that's kind of how we found it all. But yeah, sports was my identity. It was my life.
So how long was it before you had your leg amputated above the knee?
So we tried, my identity as an athlete meant I had to have two legs. So I fought so hard to keep that for several years. And, honestly, we had a knee replacement done. I fought the cancer, beat the cancer, had a metal knee for about 4.5 years. And then I got a staph infection inside that metal knee and spent 2 years in the hospital from the time I was 21 until I was 23. And at that point, after 16 open knee surgeries, 16 staph infections, I had to make the hard choice to amputate. And honestly, I thought I was making the choice to end my career as an athlete.
Right. And so much of your identity was as an athlete. How tough were those times? And relating it to what the world is going through now. I mean, you were basically sheltered in place for a long time, just trying to figure out what the hell your life was going to be.
Yeah, honestly, it was really similar to what's going on now. I spent a lot of time in the hospital. You go through, I had one 30-day stint in a hospital room. And, it's a little different than this because you have nurses coming in and out of your room. And you get to see your family. So, but that was kind of similar. I mean, you deal with these isolations and you deal with these setbacks. And that was kind of the first introductory to having to adapt to life in a crazy way for me. As a child, I had a great childhood. Things never really seemed to be that different than most. And then one day you're living in a hospital.
And when did you connect with CAF and what did CAF bring to your life?
I would say CAF was probably the biggest turning point in my life in a positive way for anything. The cancer was such a negative thing, but my mom really knew how important sports were to me, and she wasn't going to accept that just because I was choosing to amputate my leg that it was over. And she actually saw a guy get out of his truck in PB and go for a run, and she comes running back to me to tell me, "You can still do sports." And I was like, "No, that can't be right." And she actually found a guy online, looked him up, had him call me, and he happened to be working newly for Challenge Athletes Foundation at the time in their programs department, trying to start up the programs. His name was John Mabry, and he basically convinced me to come in and be a volunteer, and that's when it all changed for me.
He was the one who got you through. He was the one who helped you get past what you were dealing with.
He definitely was my mentor. He's such a great friend, and he never really was trying to teach me how to be an amputee. He just was there for me, and through his actions of just living and living positively with not this woe is me type attitude, it changed my thought process. I was in a really dark place mentally. I've always been a glass half full kind of guy.
Yeah.
And at that time, the glass was empty for me. I was very, very much in a dark spot, thinking, just really negative thoughts about life. And seeing him be so positive with his situation changed how I viewed myself and what I was going through.
So when did you get that identity back as an athlete? Because you had missed that for all those years. And then, I mean, you get into para triathlon, You become on the national team for Sid Volleyball. So much of your life was as an athlete again, and that had disappeared.
Yeah, I've had a crazy road of being an athlete post amputation, and I'd say it all started with my first grant. I, I was never a huge runner. As a wrestler, I was a college-bound wrestler in high school. I was a small guy on a football team, but you can ask anybody. I was probably the most scrappy guy on the field, and all that stuff, for me came to a halt. And it wasn't until my first grant, the doctors had told me I'd never run again. I didn't want to run, but when somebody tells you you can't do something, you want to prove people wrong. I mean, a real athlete wants to prove people wrong. And so that was my goal. And so I signed up to get a running leg with zero intentions of being a runner, just to prove people wrong. And I did my first 5K. I can't remember exactly where it was. It was here in San Diego, and it was probably the longest 5K in history. But I felt so accomplished just being able to run that 5K again, just to be able to be out there with people and feeling like I was being active. That was a turning point. It was where I finally said, you're not disabled. You're adapting to life, and you're learning how to do that with support from organizations like CAF. And, from that point on, I knew my allegiance was to this organization. I had to do everything I could to make sure that other people knew about this organization, that they had the ability to be connected and uplifted and positively impacted through it. So I ended up working for them.
I love how everything comes full circle, and we're doing high school adaptive track and field out of Claremont, right? Out of Claremont High. And
My alma mater.
Your alma mater. And talk a little bit about the importance of that, because we have kids out there who are watching this right now who don't know that they can still be an athlete, or they just got their first CAF grant, or they're hoping one day to get a CAF grant. How important, talk a little bit about the importance of sport. And I think it's somewhat underestimated how sport can change you for the better.
Yeah, I think it is such a special thing to be able to have our high school adaptive sports program at Claremont. For me, just being a coach there now, having that be my, athletic highlight of my youth athletics career, and now to be able to offer that same location to kids in the adaptive sports world is great. And one of the biggest things about this program that makes me so proud is this was a brainchild of some of the people in this programs department at CAF, and we've come to see it grow to where it impacts kids in such a positive way, because we've seen that society really doesn't know what to do with people with disabilities in mainstream sports. And, when you get a kid or you get an adult even that wants to come out and be a part of something, especially team sports, it's an eye opener for a lot of coaches. It's an unknown, and a lot of people are very afraid of the unknown. So we wanted to make sure that we had a way to impact that area of athletics, and just making sure that we could create opportunities for these kids to be a part of their teams. We wanted to make sure that they felt like they were part of their schools and the programs, and that they were joining something because they have the right to. A lot of people just don't know what to do when somebody steps up and says, I want to be there and I want to be a part of this. So we created a program that allows everybody to understand how to make that happen.
So right now, and you mentioned it, our kids are isolated right now. So many of our kids had that, they're part of a team when they're part of the high school team, or when they go to school, there's a lot of services that are available in schools for people who are in wheelchairs or people who are in amputees that now that they're isolated at home, they don't have. What are your concerns for our challenged athletes out there and what they're going through right now?
Honestly, I think the biggest concern, being a challenge athlete myself, it's like, what are we going to do to continue to stay active? But more importantly, I've lost my self identity when it comes to my community. That is really how I see myself, as that connection to my challenge athlete community. And when I can't connect with my sports team, or I can't connect with my coaches and my teammates, it really does take a mental toll, and it really hinders our personal mental wellness. And I think that that's my biggest concern, is making sure that everybody who's out there, the challenge athlete or not, that's dealing with this isolation, that we're able to figure out a way to bring people together and still continue to show that the community is there for each other. And that's my biggest worry, is just that someone out there is dealing with this isolation in a negative way, and we want to find them and bring them into a really positive place, whether it's virtually or providing, workouts or something that's going to make them feel like CAF and the rest of the adaptive community cares.
What did you gain from your challenge, from losing a leg, from trying to save it for so long and dealing with those dark moments in the hospital? What did you gain from that has helped you with your job now as programs director at Challenge Athletes Foundation?
I think for me, it's just an understanding what people go through. It's a long road to lose a limb. It's a long road to go through any kind of physical injury. And I would say it's even a longer road to be born with something that people don't understand. And to go through all that and know that you're different, that's a hard thing. And I can say that being on the other side as a kid growing up, having, all my limbs and being relatively normal as far as I knew, I can relate to both sides, and I can try to help connect and bridge the gap between, how the rest of the world sees the disabled athletes and the adaptive athletes. And I think that my goal is to make sure everybody feels like they have an opportunity to be able to be active, whether it's recreationally or competitively.
So how are you powering through this time, this sort of bizarre time in our world?
Honestly, I found that this Zoom meetups and little happy hours after work with family, being able to just see somebody else's face and hear somebody else's voice really takes away the loneliness. Trying to be physically active in whatever ways you can. I know not everybody has the room to get out and do stuff in the backyard, but any little thing really makes a difference. And whether it's push-ups and sit-ups in your bedroom or just jogging in place or riding on your bike trainer, like those are the things that I think breaks up the day. But yeah, I think the Zoom meetings have been awesome.
Favorite athletic moment for you?
Honestly, I think winning the New York triathlon national championships in 2011 was probably one of my biggest moments. Unexpected for me, not that I didn't work for it, but to be able to cross that finish line, be the first one across was a big deal. And I'll hold that close to my heart for the rest of my life.
Okay, now we're going to a little rapid fire. These are quickies, all right? Just short answers to awesome questions. Best CAF memory?
You know what? I got a ton, Bob. I've been doing this for so many years. I would say every little kid that comes across this organization is part of my CF memory, but I'll give Haven Shepherd a little shout out. When she first got introduced to the organization, that kid stole my heart. So
watching her at the Olympic trials in 2016 in swimming, double above knee amputee, watching her go from being adopted out of Vietnam to going to the Olympic trials, Paralympic trials, and just watching how she's thrived has been pretty amazing. Okay, go to comfort food.
Sushi, 100%.
Most recent TV show binge.
I've been watching a lot on Netflix, but I watched Lock and Key the other day. That got me caught up. So,
favorite book or podcast? Of course, Babbittville.
David Chang from Ugly to Delicious actually does a really good podcast.
Very cool. Person you miss seeing the most besides me?
My mom.
Yeah. Where's mom at? She in San Diego or no?
Arizona.
Okay. Place you can't wait to visit when this is over?
Honestly, Europe. And I hate to say Spain is one of those places, but when all this calms down, I got to make sure that the Rona's gone.
What words do you love to hear from a coach?
All the effort that you've put in is really, really making a difference. When you hear that really shows that all that hard work and time is coming through.
What words do you hate to hear from a coach? And I'm betting some of the times words you hated to hear from your coach, you see them, you hear them coming out of your own mouth and go, oh no, I can't believe I'm saying that.
Yeah, as a coach, I find that happening a lot. One of the things I hate to hear the worst is that I don't think you gave it your all.
Yeah. So any social posts or of workouts or mindset coping stood out to you from among our challenged athletes, some of the posts from those athletes?
I think you're starting to see a lot of stuff popping up. I think everybody is out there doing their own thing, from yoga to indoor cycling, just working out. I love following Carlos Moleda just because the guy's a beast. But I watch them all, try to get a little tips from everybody. So I'm hoping that CAF's going to have their own up soon, and we'll have a really great library of things for people to share and see.
One of my favorite stories was Ella Rodriguez. And to me, that points out the power of Travis and just the fact that this little girl reached out, and for her Christmas present from Santa, she wanted to meet someone like her who was also missing a leg. And you reached out to her and the family. To take me through that and how special that was for you.
Yeah, we get a lot that comes through the organization when we end up having just emails and Facebook posts and stuff. And hers was one that caught me. It really was just so special to see a little kid write to Santa to say that, I want to meet another amputee like me. And I knew I had to make that happen. And I knew some people in the area. So we reached out, connected the little girl and her family with another family very close by. And lo and behold, who knew that the young lady is my birthday twin? And I've watched her grow up, and she is now a high schooler that is just so poised and professional when she speaks, and she's a budding athlete. I mean, I see her every day just take huge strides, and she's a huge part of our high school program here in California. Just love that kid. It's a special moment, and to see how far she's come from that first little, she's now mentoring other kids, and to see that's such a great transition.
Exactly. Any final words of advice or motivation to our challenged athletes or CAF supporters who are out there?
Yeah, you know what, guys, just keep powering through. This is going to be over before we know it, but it's a time where we get to learn a little bit more about each other. Take this time to really reach out to your loved ones and to those that you may not have had a chance to really connect with in the past because we were too busy. There's no excuses right now. Just take it in, and enjoy the moment for what it is. And soon enough, we'll be back together working out and participating and competing and getting back to the grind. But really just take advantage of this opportunity for whatever it is.
Love it. T, as always, thanks for taking time, brother. Appreciate you. Appreciate everything that you do.
Well, thank you, Bob. Appreciate you as well.
All right. That wraps up episode 1, Challenged Athletes Live. Travis Ricks, Programs Director, CAF. We'll be back with more next week.